without further ado, Claudio Oriani, the sky this month.
Thank you, Tom, and hi everyone. Welcome to my presentation. Who knows me know that I'm used to do that quite often, and I'm happy to present the sky for the month of October. There's so many things happening this month, and let's start. So let's start with the sky highlights. So first of all, on October 4th, there is International Observe the Moon Night. If you have a telescope and binocular, go out and look at the moon. Of course, if the weather is good. And if you have a telescope, show the moon to your friends and kids. There will be a wow moment for them. There are so many activities on Jupiter that is turning on the first side of the night. And specifically, there are like shadow occultation and double shadow transit on the Jupiter disk, many of them in early mid-October. Venus is bright pre-sunrise. Mars is about to say goodbye, visible just a few minutes after the sunset, but it's useful because there is a comet that is close by, can be used to point at that comet. Mercury is appearing after sunset. It's the best 2025 apparition for the southern Severus, of course. So we can have a hint because it's very, very low to the horizon. But it's very bright, so probably you can get Mercury. It's the best time of the year to see the zodiacal light. I will tell more about this one for a couple of weeks when the moon is out of the way before sunrise. And there are no one but two bright comets. They might brighten to the naked eye. Never say never with the comets because, you know, they're like cats. They have the tail. They do whatever they want. It's not my word, someone else that is very famous. There is also something related to the most famous comet, probably, the Halley's Comet. There is a meteor shower, the Orion. There will peak between October 21st and 23rd. There are not so many, but usually they are very bright. And there are more meteor showers, the Taurids. Plus, there is a Halloween public outreach call. On the night of the 31st of October, show the moon and Saturn for another wow moment to the kids. So that will be a very good treat. Let's see how many hours of dark sky we have. So today, the sunrise was at 7:15 a.m. and the sunset was at 6:57 p.m. You will see that there are 11 hours, 42 minutes of daylight. So that's a diagram. And on November 6th, when the next speaker will talk next time, the sunrise will be at 7 a.m., but the sunset will be at 5 p.m. So 10 hours. We gain more hours of imaging, finally. Astronomical twilight, when we can start having a dark, dark sky. Tonight is ending at 8:33 p.m. and started at 5:39. That means that we have 9 hours, 6 minutes of imaging time with a dark, dark sky. When on November 6th, we have 10 hours, 43 minutes of imaging time. Of course, the days are getting shorter and shorter, and we also have the change of time beginning of November. Daylight savings on November the 2nd will be ended. Let's see the sky. So that's a stellarium screenshot, and you know that I'm showing when the sky is turning dark. So for today, if you look southeast to southwest, you see the moon, easy, and you see Saturn to the left. In the nearby, there is also Neptune. I didn't mention here, but if you have a binocular, you know where to find Neptune, you can also spot it. Let's point northeast to southeast instead. Still Saturn here. And one of my favorites, the Triangle Galaxy. I imagined recently, the Andromeda Galaxy. They are the most distant object we can see from a dark sky with the naked eye. So their light started more than 2 million years ago. And of course, there is a double cluster in Perseus, other beautiful binocular target. Let's see what happened to the northwest sky. See how low is the Big Dipper. And if you look at the southwestern sky, you see all the summer constellation going away. You still have some chances to see the Hercules, the globular cluster in Hercules, M13, and the Cygnus with beautiful deep sky object and narrowband targets. And if you look up in the sky, you see Perseus, Cassiopeia. Let's go a little bit later over the night. Look east, you see the winter constellations. So the Pleiades are getting higher in the sky. I was imaging a couple of nights ago, and when I put everything away, it was around 3 o'clock in the morning. The sky was so clear. There was Orion, the Pleiades, Jupiter. It was so beautiful. Strange to have 3 or 4 days of a clear sky in a row at the end of September, but we got it. And other beautiful open clusters, Hyades, and the Auriga constellation, one of the most brilliant stars of the Capella. We'll go there later. And of course, Gemini, with Jupiter just popping up from the treetop. And Orion is getting higher. It's bending on that side. Let's go to the sun. Though the solar cycle 25 has passed its peak already probably 1 year ago, but still, while the activity has declined, there are coronal holes. That means that we can still have northern lights. There are some resources to see how the sun is doing, spaceweather.com, one of my favorite, the NOAA Gov, of course. And for my phone, I get a notification waking up in the middle of the night when there is a blink because there is a high solar activity. And it's available for free both for Android and iOS. If you want to look at northern lights, look for a couple of things. First of all, the KP, the solar activity, must be higher than 5. Plus, interplanetary magnetic field must point south. With this couple of things, the strong wind and the KP more than 5, you have more chances to see the aurora from here. I will go there a little bit later. So that image was taken on September 19 with my small hydrogen alpha telescope. You can see some spots, some details of the sun surface, the photosphere, some filaments, and this is the inverted image, so you can see also prominence to the right, to the south of the sun. Sometimes when you take image of the sun, there are surprises happening, like what happened on September 19 to me. There's someone who wanted to be, cool, and I got that. Plus, why aurora are more frequent in September and October? That's interesting. I did some homework, and despite the solar activity was lower than 1 year ago, there is a couple of things happening. There is something called the magnetic reconnection. They're more likely because the Earth magnetic field links are oriented in September in a way that, according to the Russell-McFerron equinoctial effect, there is like a connection between the magnetic field of the sun and the Earth. So around the equinoxes, there are more chances to see aurora. Of course, you still need solar activity for a show. And this is what happened on September 14. I was imaging Saturn, and I got this notification on my app. So I went to the park. It is quite dark, and this is what I got. Someone was luckier than me. My niece was in Keswick for some other business, and she said, "Wow, look at that!" Carm, thank you. It was like 20 minutes long, all these dancing lights. Let's go to the moon. On October 8th, we'll be very close, on 359 kilometers away, and the apogee will be on October 24. it will be more than 400,000 kilometers away. There's someone taking some experiments, taking images of the so-called supermoon and mini-moon, when there is like full moon, and see the difference in size. And you can see there is 15% difference. You can't really spot with your naked eye, but if you compare the images, you can see that the moon is definitely bigger when it's closer, of course. That's also the reason why sometimes the eclipses are not total but annular, because the moon is so far away that it can't cover the entire surface of the sun. The phase of the moon, we had the full moon on October 6th, the harvest moon. I don't need to explain why this harvest moon. Last quarter will be on October 13, and then the moon will be out of the way for the happiness of astro imagers. On October 21st, new moon, and the first quarter will be on October 29. There is a combination of the tidal forces between the moon, the sun, and the earth that will make it possible to see more than 50%. So as everybody knows, the moon is always facing the same side to us, but there is like a wobbly moment, and what we see is like 59% of the surface of the moon. Sometimes we see more on the south, like on October the 8th, the east on October 12th, the north on October 22nd, and the west on October 28th. So you can definitely see more than 50% on the moon. And if you look on October 8th, you can probably spot the area of the South Pole where the Artemis 3 will land. Again, as I mentioned, the RAS Toronto Center want to organize some, trick or treat for kids. So why don't you bring your telescope, your binocular outside on the night of the 31st of October, when the moon is very bright after the first quarter, and you can show above the moon and Saturn. Who can do that? All the RAS members, of course. Where? From your backyard, from your driveway. What do you want to do? Just bring your scope outside, and you can go visual, or if you're lucky, you can go this way, connect the planetary camera to your scope, and then many people at the same time can look at the moon or Saturn. So you have future astronomers. That's a nice initiative, so please do it. And the moon is going closer to many planets and bright stars. These are happening all the time, but for the month of October, I highlighted a few of them. So on October the 5th, Saturn will be 4 degrees south of the moon. If you have a tele, 135 tele should be enough to have both the object in the same field of view. On the October 9th, the moon will pass in front of a Pleiades, M45 in Taurus. And on October 19, Venus and the moon will be very close in the pre-dawn sky. I mean, 4 degrees is quite close. And look at that. That's Saturn and the moon on October 5th. And the red rectangle is what you can see with a DSLR camera and 135 millimeter lens. It's a nice couple. The moon and the Pleiades will be together on October the 9th. We'll see the moon advancing on the Pleiades. And Venus and the moon will be together on October 19 before sunrise. Very, very nice, because the moon is so tiny to the right. What about the planets? Well, except Venus, there will be in the morning sky. All the planets are visible finally in the evening. And Mercury is very bright, but as I said, is very low to the horizon after sunset. The second half of the month will be better. Venus, again, is small, but it's bright. Minus 3.9 magnitude means that it is the most prominent object in the morning. Mars is small and tiny and will really be hard to spot it just because it's red. Jupiter will finally be the highlight of the evening sky in a few weeks. Saturn is still prominent after the opposition that happened last month, and Neptune the same. Uranus will have a opposition in November. So as I say, Mercury is the best 2025 evening apparition for the southern observers. That's interesting, but very hard to see. Maybe you can try. After sunset, very low to the western sky, to the left of the sun, just after sunset, they're just 2 degrees apart. And Mercury will be very bright, Mars not that bright. It will reach the greatest eastern elongation on October 29, but the problem is that the sun is here and Mercury is here, so it will be very, very low angle from our latitudes. You can see with the naked eye. It's hard to spot, but you can see with the naked eye, yeah. Will be brighter than magnitude 0 for the entire month. So after sunset, probably half an hour after the sunset, never look where the sun during the day because you can have harm to your eyes. After sunset, you can see Mercury to the left of where the sun was setting. Yeah, we can go later. I can answer the question later, but yes, we can see from Toronto. There is a joke about Copernicus, but this is an urban legend. Was never able to see Mercury from Poland, but that's not true. It's funny to say, oh, I saw Mercury while Copernicus did not. That's not true. Venus is very bright, but is on the other side of the sun, so it's not really interesting with a tiny, almost full disk. Because Venus and Mercury are the only object, except the moon, they show phases. And this was discovered by Galileo. That image was taken, I think it was in Pickering in May 2023 with my telescope. Mars, not much to say. Increasingly difficult to locate the evening sky because it's very, very dim and is getting closer to the sun. So there is still a light after sunset, and yeah, that was a couple of years ago. Jupiter, now things are getting interesting because what you see, it will be visible in the second half of the night in Gemini constellation. The magnitude will increase because Jupiter is getting closer to us and will be minus 2.3 at the end of the month. There are many events, moon shadow transit, occultation, and double shadow transits. What does it mean? I will show you in a few seconds. So first of all, if you are a RASP member, you have the Observer Handbook 2025. Those are the pages. You can see all the mutual events of the Jupiter major moons. And in particular, we can have 2 moons. They're just passing in front of Jupiter. You can see their little shadows moving on the surface, if I call it surface, because Jupiter is a gas giant. And Jupiter just above the horizon, because it's at 249, probably you can see at least part of the event. You see first the shadow of Io, then the shadow of Europa, and then the 2 little moons. If you have a big telescope, you can see both the moons passing in front of Jupiter. Same is happening on October 11, 4:42 a.m. And then on October 13 again. That's easier to spot because it's happening before midnight. So if you are not a morning person like me, you may try to observe this one. You in Europa again on October 18, before sunrise, not for me. And October 20, 2:24 a.m., the event is very bright and visible in the second half of the night, Io and Ganymede. And there will be more and more in November. That's a highlight of what happened on October the 4th. As I say, you see the 2 moons to the lower side of the slide, and then the two shadows, they're just passing in front of Jupiter. And over the course of the night, you will see these two shadows moving, and also the moons. Same is happening on October 11, and there will be another guest. There is the Great Red Spot. Sometimes I notice that some of the shadows is just passing over the Great Red Spot. That's something. Not this time. And again, on October 20, Io and Ganymede, they will be far apart on the two different sides of the southern hemisphere of Jupiter. What about Saturn? The opposition was on September 21st, and Saturn is still prominent with a gray yellowish color in the evening. It's a great target with the rings, although the rings are a little bit tilted now, and it's not the best operation, but it's getting better. Actually, it's getting worse until November, then it's getting better. Because the ring system, since the mutual orbit of the Earth and Saturn will getting closer and closer, so the plan of the rings will be almost flat. That's why we can see just 0.6%, just a line on Saturn. A little bit strange. That was Saturn a few nights ago on September 15, and you can maybe spot this little dot to the top left of Saturn. This is a Titan, just a few minutes before the transit of this shadow started. Now you can see better here. And on October 5th, after midnight, we had the last chance to see the shadow of Titan for probably 4 minutes, I guess, only. It will graze the Saturn northern pole for this season. And we had to wait for 15 more years for this to happen again. Can you see the little dot to the top left of Saturn? Here. That was Titan. The only good image I got that night because the weather wasn't really cooperating. Uranus is visible for the most part of the night. It's retrograde. That means that we are passing. Uranus is going back in Taurus constellation. The magnitude is 5.6. So from the dark sky, with a well-adapted eye, you can technically see Uranus. It will reach opposition on November 21st, and that's what you can get with a small telescope. Also the moons. I only got 4 out of 5. Neptune, in Pisces constellation, just past opposition because it's very close to Saturn on September 23rd. And yeah, some interesting stuff because you can't really see much. You can see this blue for sure. You can see there's a disk, not a dot like the stars. And with a big telescope, you can also see the brightest moon, Triton. With a smaller telescope, you can even image that moon. The magnitude is 7.8 now. The distance from Earth is 4.3 million kilometers. That means that it's like taking 4 hours to get to us. And that's amazing that with a small telescope pointed to Neptune, with the right exposure time and right post-processing, you can see that little moon to the bottom of Neptune. It's the best time of the year to see the zodiacal light before sunrise, because it's the time of the equinox, is when the zodiacal light, that is a scattered interplanetary dust, is getting steeper. So we can see this dust and on the same plan of the ecliptic before sunrise. From the dark sky, this is what you can get. The Milky Way to the right and the zodiacal light. This is not my picture. One of the pictures, not mine. Now, let's go to the deep sky suggestion for October 2025. Always find something easier, something a little bit more challenging. The Wizard Nebula in Cygnus is still quite high in the sky. Iris Nebula is a beautiful bright nebula in Cepheus with also dark clouds. It's very challenging to image from the light polluted sky, but you can get a try. Andromeda Galaxy is a classic of this time of the year, and the Earth and Sol Nebula in Cassiopeia. If you want to plan, there is this free online planning tool where you can specify your latitude, longitude, and you can get suggestion with your equipment, your telescope, what you can see, and you get notification every first of the month. Okay, when there is full moon, this is what you can see from the northern hemisphere. Let's start with the wizard. Where it is located? There, in Cepheus. And this you can see, and this image was taken a couple of years ago from the CAO in Collingwood, and you can see what a difference a dark sky can make with only 3 hours of total integration time. But what is the Wizard Nebula? It's a bright emission nebula with young open star cluster. This quite close in astronomical terms, 7,200 light years away, and is made of gas and dust clouds. The stellar wind with these massive young stars is creating this shape that is resembling kind of a wizard. It's a good target for Halloween, I would say. With a narrowband filter, so you don't really care about the light pollution as long as you capture enough photons. That means many hours of integration time. Iris Nebula, that's a different story because the Iris Nebula is not really narrowband target. It's a broadband target. And this is where the light pollution is making a big difference. You need hours and hours of integration to get this blue, beautiful color. But there is also a part to the left that's without stars, if you notice. There's someone else in the audience that took a beautiful picture of the Iris Nebula. And these dark clouds are beautiful to see. I will try to capture more hours, but that's very challenging from the dark, light polluted sky. Yeah, that's what it said. There's this filament and this classic autumn imaging target in the northern hemisphere because it's very high, almost at the zenith. Andromeda Galaxy, nothing to say here. This is where it's located, south of the Cassiopeia. And this is what you can get with just 2 hours of integration time with a good guiding. It's so big, it doesn't fit completely in my field of view. But you can see the 2 satellite galaxies to the bottom right and to the left of the galaxy. Is in a way of collision with our galaxy, but don't worry, this will take millions of years. Not quite yet. And this is something very cool. This Earth and Sol Nebula. I see one 805, 848. They're located here on the other side of Perseus. And this you can get with a few hours of integration. This is a small tele, 135, and my camera with a narrowband. These are definitely narrowband targets. The Earth, also the fish head, and the one to the right. We like to make like a comparison with things they are familiar with us. And also, this is a place where radiation are creating this nebula from young stars. But we also have Halloween this month, right? So we have some idea. Wizard Nebula already talked about that. We also, the witch broom that is high in the sky is the part of the Cygnus loop and is a remnant of a supernova. Beautiful color with a narrowband filter, green and red. The ghost of Cassiopeia, that's so hard to image because there is a cuff. Once the gamma Cassiopeia is so bright, but you can get something there. The Skull Nebula is a planetary nebula in situ. You need a bigger telescope. The skull-like appearance. Spider Nebula, I never heard about that one before. I did some research. Their dark lanes resemble spider legs. I search online and I can't really see the spider legs. I don't know if you can, just let me know. The Fly Nebula is in Auriga as well. And the Pumpkin Nebula, I mean, what the best object to image for Halloween, is glowing hydrogen alpha. Well, and the Little Ghost, a small planetary nebula in Ophiuchus, is still visible at the beginning of the month, but very low to the horizon. Well, I talked about the ghost of Cassiopeia. Well, a couple of nights ago, the sky was so clear that I decided, okay, let's try to image this object for the entire night. And this is what I got. When you say that if you image for many hours, you get more signal and you have something there. But we have many comets and it's getting late. There's someone who will talk about comets just after me, so I don't want to steal the show. But we have two bright comets visible this month. So the comet C2025 R2 Swan was discovered really from an image taken when the spacecraft was imaging the sun. It was so bright. It was a Ukrainian astronomer. Wait, there is a comet with a bright tail. Why nobody noticed before? And someone is suggesting that can be brighter than fourth magnitude. I will always try to be pessimistic with comets so that we don't have surprise. The latest observed magnitude a couple of days ago was 6.7. Of course, that first comet will be visible from the southern hemisphere, or from here just after sunset. But the second one, that's our comet, is predicted to be bright in the second half of October, and it can even reach magnitude 2. Again, I will be pessimistic, and I would say maybe 5, maybe 6. Let's see. And then there is an interstellar comet that is not particularly bright, but is only the third object to reach us. Ron will tell you more about that one. This is a website. You can see information about the comets and where you find them. Also, that's a Japanese astronomer that has very, very accurate detail about the comet. Harry.net comet, weekly current.html. Let's talk about the first comet visible right now. It's a beautiful tail. And he had an outburst a few days ago. It was 5.9. And you can reach with a binocular just after sunset. I saw a beautiful picture taken from the southern hemisphere. You have a good opportunity. If you see where is the Alpha Library, Zubelgenubi, sorry for my accent here. And you will take long exposure, like 30 seconds of that stars. If you have a star trail after sunset, probably you will also capture that comet. But it's very, very low, no more than 5 degrees above the horizon. The closest approach to Earth will be on October 19. Seems like this comet already passed the perihelion and survived, so it should be good. The northern hemisphere, we can never glimpse again in the next few days. Our comet, Lemon, no lemon, but Lemon, C2025A6, is still not confirmed that is a periodic comet or is like a visitor that is going away from our solar system. And it might reach, if we continue this trend, magnitude 4 or even brighter. But again, let's take with a grain of salt. Because, you know, the comets are very unpredictable and erratic. The closest approach to Earth will be on October 21st, so the brightest magnitude with also the scattered light from the other side of the sun. And this is a good opportunity to watch the comet around October 16 because it is just beside the Big Dipper before sunrise. take note of this one, and let me see if you can image the comet, weather permitting. And then we have the interstellar comet 3I. I means interstellar, Atlas. I don't want to talk too much about this one because it will be a long, long talk after mine. But the funny story about this comet that it is supposed to be more than 7 billion years old. That means that it's older than our own solar system. And it's only the third interstellar visitor after Umawawa and the Borisov comet, the second comet. And we had an asteroid before. Yeah, it also seems like it's coming from a part of the galaxy that is the outer thick disk of the galaxy. It can become an object, I mean, interesting to observe, but not too bright, no brighter than 11 magnitude. Interesting to see, it's very, very big. And that an interesting event, but we cannot really image anything there because it will be just after sunset. You see that there is Venus on October 31st, and the comet will pass very close, but the magnitude will be probably 12, 13, 14. It won't be visible, sorry. Then we have asteroid, Ceres 1, the first asteroid ever discovered at the opposition on October 2nd, so tomorrow. In Cetus, 7.6, so is definitely a binocular and a small telescope object, and is the largest and most massive asteroid, and recently has been reclassified as a dwarf planet, as a companion of Pluto. Pluto is no longer a planet. For me, it's still a planet, but anyways, it's another story. And it orbits the sun inside the asteroid belt that is between Mars and Jupiter, named after the Roman goddess of the harvest and fertility. And yeah, there is some story about the discovery. There were two German astronomers, Johann Elert Bode and Johann Daniel Titius. They were just calculating the orbits of the inner planets, and there was some kind of law that worked well from Mercury to Saturn, but there was a striking gap between Mars and Jupiter, and no planets were known. So they call the Celestial Police, 24 experienced astronomers, and they began a methodical search for this expected planet. Well, Ceres was discovered by Giuseppe Piazzi from Palermo, Sicily, in January 1st, 1801. And he named this discovery Cerere Ferdinandea after King Ferdinand of Sicily. Then they decided to remove the king name, probably better this way. And nobody was able to spot this asteroid, this planet again, until next year, and they calculated this orbit. That's funny because the Bose law didn't work, and it seems like it's not really a law, just a pure astronomical coincidence. So it failed to predict Neptune's orbit, for example. And interesting, in 2014, the Herschel Infrared Space Telescope detected some plumes that seems like quite common for these small planets. And the next year, there was a spacecraft from NASA, Dawn, that was the first one to orbit asteroid. They're beautiful images. If you go line, is almost round object with these white spots. Still not clear what they're making for, but it's probably made of inner ocean. That's interesting. Meteor showers. We have the Draconids on October 6-10. Not really interesting, but in a few hours on the night of October 8, but there is a moon around. They're known for occasional outbursts, hundreds of more meteors per hour, rarely. So it's always good to be around and have a look. In the constellation Draco, so they are always visible above the horizon. And we have the full moon again, so it's not the best time. We have the Orion, and this is between October the 2nd and November the 2nd. That's not particularly interested, but The interesting is that coming from the Halley's comet, we have 10 to 20 meteors hour under ideal dark sky condition. And they're coming from the beautiful constellation of Orion. Before sunrise, when the radiant is highest in the sky. And they're coming from the Halley's comet debris. There is Southern Taurids, not much to say about that one. Just 5 per hour, just for the records. And International Space Station, we have a few bright passes. They're all in the morning before sunrise. The most interesting are highlighted here. You can see, maybe I'm going too fast. On October, I can't really see, 18, 19, and the magnitude, -3, -3.4, etc. That means that is a good target. They're always in the morning, and I think there is only one that is very high in the sky. This one. November the 1st, 6:18 to 6:24 a.m. This map was calculated for my location, so this is changing over time because of the, course correction of the orbit of the International Space Station. So this timing can change. So go and get the heavens above or space station, spotthestation.nasa.gov. There's another website. The maximum altitude will be almost overhead, 82 degrees. When this is happening, you are sure that the International Space Station is very bright, -3.8. And with that, really, I'm close. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claudio. Do we have any questions from the audience?
Thanks. Hello? Thanks very much. Big fan of your work on the, when you posted on the bulletin board. So 3 technical questions, just clarifying. Earlier you said aurora at the equinox, but you only talked about the autumnal. Does that same effect of most likely visible also include the spring equinox in March, April?
Yes, correct. That's because of the orientation of our axis and
right.
The sun with these massive coronal holes is sending his solar wind in the space. So the way our Van Allen belts are oriented, they're just attracting the particles from the sun. That's why in September and March, we have more chances of the auroras.
Yeah, and 2 other technical questions, then a public service announcement, if I may. You said small versus large telescope. I'm not sure how you make that distinction. I'm just like, I have a 5-inch Cassegrain, 8-inch refractor and so forth. If you could comment on that. And you also said narrow bandwidth versus high bandwidth imaging. If you could just sort of dive into that. And I'll just finish with my public service announcement. I went to a play this past Sunday that runs till next Sunday called The Welkin at Soul Pepper. And a bit player in that play is Halley's Comet, because it was set in 1759.
Yeah, I mean, small telescope, usually you say the small telescope is up to like 20, 9 inches starting to be defined a big telescope. I have 8 inches, so this is medium one probably. 5 is also medium. Maybe I have a 80 millimeter. The most part of my time is spending with the 80 millimeter. It's definitely a small telescope, but it's just working like a clock. So probably 90% of my time, unless I want to image the planets and the moon, I'm using the small telescope. And the distinction between narrowband and broadband filters is just that the narrowband filter just letting pass a little sliver of wavelength. Usually there is a sulfur 2, oxygen 3, and hydrogen alpha. And combined these three colors, you have the so-called, Hubble palette. So red, green, and blue, the yellowish stuff. This is working well from light polluted sky because we are just cutting all the emission from the light bulb from the street lamps. The light pollution filters are just increasing the details and the contrast. They're not really reduced. Yeah, they can reduce a little bit of the moon brightness and also the light pollution from the not the LED lights, unfortunately, but from the the original lamps, street lamps. It can definitely reduce. What I can say, they're very expensive, but if you put a filter from your location that is very light polluted, Bortle 7, Bortle 8, you can have good results. But if you really need to image broadband objects like the galaxies, go to a dark sky. Hope that answers your question.
Any other questions from the audience? Okay, and we have one question online.
Hey, Andrew.
Okay, Tim Moody says, any tips for exposing the Pleiades without blowing out the moon?
Unfortunately, I tried so many different options and I still don't have an answer. So the good thing probably when the moon is before the first quarter, when there's sliver of moon, is work. The right person to ask is probably, yeah.
I was just going to comment that
Michael Watson
Space Weather
probably
says
is,
there's a
the right
geomagnetic
person to
storm
ask.
underway.
I never found the
Anything else
right
about
exposure to blow the moon. Maybe you can do HDR, take the moon, take the stars, and put them together. But I was never able to capture both together. That's a very good
Understood.
point, but unfortunately, I don't have the right answer. Maybe there is no right answer. I don't know.
Understood. We have a few comments and another question as well. Eric Briggs says, we observed Mars on Monday evening. We were looking for Comet Swan over Lake Erie and no comment. I'm sure we won't see Mars again until next time. Brenda Shaw comment, Eric saw Mars in the Merc. I think that's what it's supposed to be. I couldn't pick it out though. Frank Dempsey comment, great red spot on Jupiter is more correctly described as pale spot, or pale pink spot, I should say. And one other question here, just a moment. Shraddha Apai says, how bright will these comets be compared to the beautiful one last October? Atlas, oh boy, I'm not going to say that one. That one was clearly visible in binoculars from near the DVP in Toronto.
Yeah, again, about comets, we can't make estimates. So there are like light curves. And if the observation are going the right direction, the comet Lemon can even be magnitude 2. But I would be very, very cautious about this one. Magnitude 2 can be probably comparable to the comet we had last year.
Awesome.
Can be a naked eye comet, but he has a beautiful activity. I was looking at some images from, probably most of the astro images Adam Block. And this comet has this dust tail that is changing hour by hour. So just beautiful.
Fantastic.
Just look online and look at this beautiful comet.
Absolutely. Eric Briggs, thanks for the comet play information. Recently, the Broadway play The Great Comet of 1812 was at the Royal Alec in Toronto, but I missed it. And that's it for online.
I just want to mention that Chris said that there's a geomagnetic storm going on right now.
Right.
So you saw it too?
No, because I was presenting, my phone is off, as
okay.
Tom was saying.
Okay.
I didn't get the notification.
Okay.
Thank you, Chris.
Maybe Chris can fill us in some more when it's his turn.